So welcome to my final thoughts on NIS 9, Monstrum Nox. Now, about a year and a bit ago, I played the Japanese version of the game right here. I gave some first thoughts where I just finished the game a couple of nights ago, and I want to come in and just give my final thoughts of what I think about the game, where it stands in the NIS series, and all that stuff. And I want to say, I'm not going to do heavy spoilers or anything like that. I will show some footage from later on in the game. I'm going to try to shy away from some boss footage because there's some really cool bosses in the game. And I just really want to come in here and just talk about NIS because I'm a huge fan. As you know, over the years I've done nothing but promote the NIS series because of my pure love for it. And it kind of got me thinking when I finished this game. I thought, wow, I finished 9 NIS games plus all of the other games, the remakes like Othfell Gana and Celceta, and then NIS Origin, which was like the beginning of it all. So much fun. I've had such a great time in the NIS universe over the years. And how does NIS 9 stand up to the rest in the series? There's a lot to talk about. So let's start at the beginning with the story. With no spoilers, as I say, that we have Adol coming into the city of Barduk. And it's a prison city, and this happens right at the beginning of the game. Adol gets accused of doing some wrongdoings, and he's brought into the prison, and that's where our game begins. And while he's in the prison, he meets a mysterious woman who turns him into one of the Monstrum. And they are a bunch of mysterious people that are trying to rid the city of monsters, and an ancient thing that I won't get into here. So who are the Monstrum? That is for you to find out in the game, and it is fully answered, and it's pretty satisfying, I'll say that much. It is pretty satisfying. One of my gripes in the original first thoughts I did on the game, I thought the game was very barren. I thought the graphics were okay. I was kind of upset that you just stayed in the city the entire time, where I want to say something to follow up from my first thoughts, that you get out of the city eventually. You get out of the city, you get into the field environments. They really shake up the environments. It gets back to what you've seen in past NIS games, but the city is the main hub, and you'll be going through some of those prisons and dungeons quite a lot. So a lot of the meat and potatoes is mainly in the city, but you do the outskirts of the fields and the mountains, and that is really fun to do. To do with the story itself, I think it's very, very interesting. I think there's a lot of really cool plot twists as you come to know who you are, and there's kind of a dual storyline thing going on that I'm not going to ruin. And in the end, you kind of find out what your place is and why you're a Monstrum and what that's really all about and what the Monstrums are really realistically about. And that ties into the entire political story that's going on throughout the city, that's been going on for a very long time. And that's the one thing I want to say. This is probably one of the most fleshed out stories in an NIS game, with the amount of characters and the amount of people you get to meet in the game itself. You get to know the city very well, and you get to know all of the people, and you get to know them quite well because you'll keep revisiting them through side quests and things like that, and you really get to know the people, and that becomes part of why the city is fun. It's not just because it's like a city and you're going around, you go through the dungeons. You kind of have a place within the city, and you get to know everybody, and it feels like home. It feels like home, and even when the game ended for me, I was kind of sad to see it all come to an end. I was like, oh, I really got to know everybody in here, and that was cool. And I think the storyline, as I say, is one of the most fleshed out storylines in an NIS game, and I think they're getting better and better with these storylines. I really liked 8, but we'll get into comparisons in a bit. Now, is this a long game? Is this a big game? It can be. It absolutely can be. I think my playtime was about 35 hours, and yes, I just took my time. I just was having a good time playing this game. I could have got this game out for review within that time period, but I wanted to take my time and see what it was really all about. And I'm kind of glad I did. It's so much fun sometimes not to rush a game and to really take your time with it and to get the most out of it. Now, I think you can really extend the playtime of this game. I think I did a lot of the quests. I think I did almost most of them, but I think doing the different difficulties can extend the game. I've heard some people doing 50 to 60 hours within the game, so there's a lot to do within this game. Now, I don't know if this is because I'm on a PS5, but load times were amazing. I don't know if it's the game itself. I didn't do a comparison. I remember playing on the PS4 last time for my first thoughts with the Japanese version. I can't remember the load times being this fast. I would step out of a shop and boom, I'd almost be in the city. It'd be 2 seconds. 2 seconds. I was like, wow, that's super fast. And say I was in one part of the city and I warped to another part of the city, it felt like 2 to 3 seconds. And I was like, wow, that's to load an entire city. And as I say, let's speak about graphics here for a second. Are these graphics going to win an award? No. Are they cutting edge next gen graphics? Not particularly. Some of the environments are very bare bones, but these games have never been about delivering like the next gen graphics. They're always like a generation behind. Even from way back in the day, they were always just a little step behind. But that being said, seeing some of the later game really showed me that the graphics are pretty good. And this is an action RPG where you're just going around killing hordes and hordes of enemies over and over, fighting bosses, doing quests. And I think traversing the world is a lot of fun with these graphics. I mean, seeing all the environments and things, later on the bosses that I saw, like I'm not even going to talk about the final boss or anything like that, I was blown away. And I think Falcom is getting better and better. I remember seeing Ys 8 and going, wow, they're catching up. You know, they're catching up graphic-wise. And then Ys 9, I think is their best attempt ever at really raising the bar for Ys graphics. And in the end of the day, I was kind of shocked at some of the later bosses and things like that, and some of the environments. I thought, yeah, like when you start in the city, you're like, oh, this is okay. But as you delve more into it and go into the outskirts, it really opens up and you get to see more of the graphical finesse. And one thing I want to speak about, a lot of people are calling this a very dark Ys game. I think somebody even said it was something like the Dark Souls of Ys games. I really want to say something. It's not that dark. It's really not that dark. Like, look at our characters. They're multicolored characters. There's nothing really dark going on here. I guess some of the storyline could be looked at as dark, but I didn't particularly think so. I thought it was an interesting storyline. I didn't think it was very dark, per se. So take that as you will. Maybe some people saw this as being a really dark Ys game. Not particularly for me, but I thought it was a fun Ys game. And that is something that I do like about it. It's very self-aware that it is an Ys game. There's one point where you're being interrogated by this lady, and she's totally asking Adol, the main character, about, you know, who he is and what he's really about and why does he always wash up on shore somewhere and go on these adventures. And it was kind of funny to see that they're very self-aware of some of the formulaic things they've done in past Ys games. And they're saying, hey, we know we've done those things and we've done them quite a lot and we're calling ourselves out on it. And that was one thing I really liked about the game. But my God, there's a lot of talking in this game. There is a lot of talking in this game. And let me say that the plot itself is very interesting. It's very interesting, but they do pad it with a lot of talking. It's just kind of like Persona 5. I've talked about that with Kim recently, where the story's great, but my God, sometimes you have to sit through a lot of dialogue to get to that story. And I'm not gonna rag on it too much for that, but there just seemed to be a lot of mindless talking when sometimes I'm like, hey, okay, I got the point. I know where I'm supposed to go. Can I just get into the field and go kill things? Like, for me, sometimes with past Ys games, it was like a little bit of story. A character would say, hey, go and do this. And you just go off into the field for hours and just grind and find special weapons in the field and all that kind of stuff. And you just go adventuring. Where sometimes in this game, you kind of do a bit of dialogue, some adventuring, bit of dialogue, some adventuring, and sometimes I just wanted to be let off the leash. And I think that's why some of the dialogue felt like it was holding me back from really going on a crazy adventure all of the time. I'm going to get into gameplay last, because that's something that really needs to be talked about. What do I think of the music? Where does the music stand in the entire Ys series? Because the Ys series has been known for its incredible music. The game is usually here, the music elevates it to here. I find in this game, I think the music is very good. I think it's good. I don't think it's like up there. I enjoyed Ys 8 music more and past Ys games a lot more. I think what it does well in this game. You play it and go, hey, this is an Ys game. But I came away from it going, there's not a lot of tracks that I'm like, I need to like listen to again. Like sometimes I finish a game. When I finished Ys 8, I was like, oh my god, I need the soundtrack, and I'd be listening to it all again. Where this one, I'm like, there's not many songs that really stick in my mind, and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to hear that again. Like now, probably given it some time, because it's still so fresh, I'll maybe go back to the music, but I don't think it's the top tier Ys music, but it's very good. Now, it seems that I'm being a little critical of the game, which I am, but this is where we get into some of the really great stuff, and why this Ys game is nearly top tier for an Ys game. Yeah, it is the gameplay. It is all about the gameplay. And Ys games have always been about running into enemies back in the day, and that would be about it. You'd run back and forth into enemies, and that would be it. And you kill the enemy. And then, all of a sudden, they start saying, hey, no, you got the sword, you can swing the sword around, you're like, cool. And then they started switching out characters, which was a brand new thing, because there was always Adol. That was it. You always use this one guy. And I still prefer this Adol, but I understand that with E7, they're like, we need to shake it up. We need to shake it up. We need to do more with this game. But it's interesting, in a game like Zelda, they've always kept the main character. They just always implemented new abilities and new things that you can do within the world itself to keep it fresh. Where with these, yeah, they're like, yeah, we need to get different characters in. So that is something that at first in E7, I was like, nope, I don't like this. And over time, with Ys 8, they really changed me. I was like, wait a second, this switching characters is really cool. In Ys 9, I think they've really, really nailed it. And the reason why is because, yes, using different characters, switching back and forth, you have different abilities to break enemies' weaknesses. And I've always understood that, but here's the great thing. In the game, without doing too many spoilers here, different monstrum will come with you on your journey. And each one of them has an ability. And you can use that ability without changing characters. So you can just use Adol and use all of the abilities. So you can turn into kind of like smoke and go under walls, or you can climb up walls, or you can use your wings and float, or you can use like a real power attack to destroy certain items and certain places in the game, certain walls. That is where this game shines so very, very brightly for an Ys game. At first, when you start playing the game, you're like, oh, the city. Near the end of the game, you're blasting through the city. You can warp from here to there. You can climb walls, get to the places you couldn't get to before. The city becomes fun after a bit of time in the beginning. And the way you can traverse the city is where it is awesome. And going through the dungeons, using different abilities on different dungeons, and figuring out your way through it is where the game is a top tier Ys game for me. It's all about that gameplay. And the enemies are really cool. There's some gigantic enemies that you take on, some really fun little puzzles. In fact, there's little bits in the game where it becomes like Indiana Jones. Right? I know, I don't even want to spoil what that's about, but it really is. In fact, there's like a boulder at one point that comes after you while you're going down a dungeon, and I'm like, is this Ys or Indiana Jones? What's happened here? So, what do I think for my final thoughts on the game? I think this is a really fun action RPG. If you've never played an Ys game, ever, jump into 8 or 9. I'd say even start with 8 and then go into 9. What do I think of this in the entire Ys series? It's in my top 5 Ys games of all time. It definitely is. I prefer, though, 8 over this. There's something about that mysterious island that I really liked. I liked the prison city. I thought it was a fun place to get around as well. But there was something about Ys 8 and that mystery that I resonates with me more. But the gameplay and the ambition that Falcom used here is quite unbelievable for an Ys game. Ys games have usually been pretty simplistic in a lot of the gameplay. Let's be honest, they have over the years, where you can see that they're really trying to do new things. And I think a lot of people who've never played an Ys game are going to come in here, and I think they're going to have a really, really, really good time. And sometimes I was playing this game and I'm like, is this even an Ys game anymore? Because the Ys series has changed so much, just like the Zelda series has. If you look at Zelda 1 to Breath of the Wild, wow, right? So if you look at Ys Books 1 and 2 to Ys 9, it's like a different beast. The main thing that's the same is Adol on his crazy adventures, action RPG, and it's fun because some of the gameplay that was in 8 is now in 9. So they've done some of those kind of challenges where you got to defeat a lot of different monsters under a certain amount of time. Those things have followed through. And also, how the game even works is that you have to do quests, a bunch of quests, to open up different sections of the city. Right? So at the end, you finally unlock everything and you can really traverse everything at that point. But it is kind of linear that way, that yes, you have to unlock this to get to this point, or this to this. It's not open world yet. And that's something that I'm hoping that they'll get to in a later Ys game. I really saw a lot of influence of Breath of the Wild within this game, the way you can kind of get around the city fast and all of that. That was fascinating, and I wonder how far they're going to go with that in the future. I think some of my gripes with the game that I was talking about earlier is, I guess what I'm wanting now is more of an open world Ys game where I can just play, pick Adol and his companions, that's fine, and really traverse the world at my leisure and go where I want. Where this game kind of makes you go here, and then it says, okay, you got to go here and here. Pretty much it does. It does. But you can explore the city and do all that kind of stuff a bit out of order, but it pretty much is that kind of experience. But I'll tell you this, I had a really, really fun time playing this game. I had a really fun time playing it, and I was sitting there going, man, I'm taking my time with this, because how often do we get a new Ys game? It's like once every 4 years, if that. It seems like a long time ago now that Ys 8 came out. And I was happy with Ys 8 because that really brought the game to the mainstream in a way that we've never seen it before. And Ys 9, I don't want it to be a sleeper hit. I think if you're on the edge and you're like, should I do this game? You should just do it. Honestly, you should just do it. It's a really fun action RPG, and some really great fun platforming that's going on in there as well. Some really cool mysteries, a really nice story that does have some payoff. It takes a while to get there, but you finally do get there. And the end bosses and some of the bosses were very, very well thought out and really well designed. And I was looking at Falcom saying, man, you come a long way with the Ys series, and I'm definitely not upset about the game. I think it's a really great game. I think in Ys, the entire series, just looking at the Ys series, judging the Ys games alone, I'd say this is a 9 out of 10 Ys game. I think it's a regular game out there for everybody to play. It's an 8 out of 10. But for what they've done, I'm being kind of impressed with them on this adventure. That is for sure. And I really enjoyed my playthrough and my time spent in that prison city. And Ys 9, Monstrum Nox, has come to a conclusion for me. So anyways, guys, until next time.